Welcome to Knowledgeable Aging. I'm your host, Jason Kotar. Joining us today to talk about Let's Keep Your Side Gig Legal is Anu Murthy. While Anu is primarily a healthcare attorney advising physicians, dentists, and other healthcare providers, she has her own side hustle in providing brand protection services around trademarks and copyrights to both her healthcare clients and to small businesses and entrepreneurs around the country. I would like to clarify, even though Anu is an attorney, nothing she is saying today should be construed as legal advice. How are you doing today, Anu?
I'm good, Jason. Thank you very much for having me on this morning.
Very well, thank you so much. Looking forward to our conversation. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's keep your side gig legal.
Since the pandemic has started, there's been quite an uptick in the formation of side gigs, side businesses, side hustles, whatever you want to call them. And a lot of this is as a result of people being furloughed or their jobs being eliminated, et cetera, and they're trying to find other sources of income to keep a roof over their heads, et cetera, et cetera. Prior to the pandemic, side gigs were typically just to diversify people's income streams, et cetera, becoming Uber drivers, DoorDash, things like that. But since the pandemic, the incidence and the formation of side gigs and side hustles has just increased dramatically. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that people are at home and they're exploring some of their creative side. They've got time because they are working from home. They don't have the long commutes, et cetera. They're not socializing. And so some of the ideas they may have had fomenting in their minds for the past few decades are coming to the forefront, and people are saying, hey, you know what, maybe I can create a side hustle. And that's particularly true among folks that are close to retirement. I'm seeing a lot of that because they're wondering whether their jobs will be eliminated. They have to take early retirement, and they're thinking, I'm not ready to completely retire yet. I still want something to do. And so they're looking at monetizing perhaps their hobbies or other services. And in this slide, I mean, you can see, so some of the things that people are doing are podcasting. They're selling their art. I have several friends who are now acclaimed artists that started in their 60s selling their art, music gigs, professional shopping, designing clothes, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of different side gigs and side hustles that are out there that can be monetized, and people are really looking into doing that now. But with this extra stream of income and potentially enough income to either replace a full-time job or add to a full-time job, there are some pitfalls and some things that I want people to be aware of before they turn their hobby into a business. So next slide, please. Okay, so you have that idea, you have that talent, you have that hobby, and you want to turn it into a business. So what do you do first? Well, the first thing that you want to do is sit down with a spreadsheet, and you want to create a business plan. Now, business plans you can find templates all over the internet. If you have an Excel program on your computer, you can certainly find business plan templates on there. And I think that's really important because you want to see if the expenses that you're going to incur to start and maintain the business, are you going to be able to have a return on your investment? And there's a lot of different things that go into starting a business. As we know, you and I are both entrepreneurs and small business owners. And so be really truthful and honest and put down everything that you're going to need. And you may not even know some of the expenses that you're going to incur, because you may think, hey, I've got my voice and I can sing and I can monetize that, or I can, there's programs to podcast and they're typically, very low cost. But there's a lot of other issues around the legal aspects and tax aspects of a small business that I want people to be aware of. And we're going to go through some of those this morning so that you really know what you're getting into. So you created your business plan. What you need to do is perhaps talk to an accountant and an attorney to go over your business plan. And the Small Business Administration in your local city has a wealth of resources and people that can help you look at your business plan, evaluate it, talk about, metrics that you can use for growth, et cetera, et cetera. And I would highly recommend that, if this is just a hobby that you're monetizing right now and you're not thinking about this as a primary source of income, in which case I would, want you to hire an accountant to do this. But if you are just really looking at this as a side gig, go to the Small Business Administration. They have a lot of information. Unfortunately, they can't do face-to-face meetings right now because of the pandemic, but they can do Zoom calls. You can send them information, and they can really help you out quite a bit. And you may decide that you don't want to do the side hustle at this point. But if you do, and next slide, please, you're likely going to have to form some kind of a legal entity. And that could be an LLC. That's typically the type of entity that you want to form. Now, people are going to ask me, well, can't I just use, be a sole proprietor? I don't have any partners or employees, and that's fine as well. Maybe for your first year, and please remember, I'm not an accountant. For your first year, if you want to just use your Schedule C on your tax return to put down your the income that you made, and then be able to deduct all the business startup expenses, you may find, and in consultation with your tax accountant, that's enough at that point. However, as you grow, one of the things that will come with growth is also increased liability. And one of the things that forming an LLC, that's a limited liability corporation, that's exactly what that means. I'm sorry, limited liability company. That's what that means. It limits your liability. It limits your exposure to lawsuits from customers, vendors, et cetera, et cetera. So it doesn't completely protect you. We'll talk a little bit about, adding multiple layers of protection. But if you're going to take this side hustle and you want to monetize it and you want to grow it, it's likely that you will need to form an LLC in your state. And I say in your state because one of the questions that I have quite often is that I'm working from home and I'm moving around. I'm in Florida, I'm in New York, et cetera, et cetera. Where do I form my LLC? And so again, not legal advice, but one of the common tactics and strategies that small business owners are using now is to form an LLC in Nevada. There are very liberal regulations and requirements in Nevada. So if you are a digital nomad and are moving around, and maybe Nevada is the place for you to form your LLC, and you could even hire a registered agent to to file on your behalf there and monitor the LLC, and it's fairly inexpensive. But again, please do consult with an attorney and an accountant before you do that. Next slide, please. So another thing that people run into is they haven't obtained the necessary permissions, especially if they're going to be making something. For example, if they are making jams and they're in their kitchen or in their basement, or if they are creating, other types of goods that out of their home, it's a good idea to check first with any homeowners associations that you may belong to. If you're in a condo, if you're or in a neighborhood that has a homeowners association, make sure that it's okay to run your business, whatever type of business it is, even if it's just podcasting. I mean, and you think, well, that's not really going to bother anybody. But there are very strict requirements and things in your HOA rules that you don't want to run afoul of. So please do check into that. A lot of times it's another neighbor that's going to turn you in for, selling your, your jam or pasta sauce or whatever it is out of your home. So make sure you get that. And then make sure also that you look into other business licenses you may need at the state and local level as well, especially if they're food related. It's very important to make sure that you're in compliance with all those requirements, because you can get shut down pretty quickly. So next slide, please. Okay, so the other thing you want to do, you have an entity, you have a business plan, you think you're going to make a return on your investment, you've gotten all the necessary license and permits to make sure that you can run your business appropriately and in compliance. Well, now you probably have some vendors that you're going to be working with. Someone may be creating a website for you. You may have a delivery service that you're contracting with. There's just a lot of different vendors that could come into play with a side hustle. So make sure that you have some agreements that have been created, reviewed by an attorney, and that you feel comfortable with. You also may have customer agreements, and by that I mean it's not necessarily when you're just selling a product to a customer, but if you're offering services, for example, coaching services or music lessons or any type of sort of intangible things that you want to make sure that the customer and you agree on time, place, frequency, the cost of the services, etc. So make sure you look at those. Working on a handshake, a lot of people think, well, it's just a side gig, it's just a side hustle, I don't really need all this legal stuff, but it exposes you to liability. I mean, think about if you have people coming into your home to learn how to cook, and there's an accident, or coming into learn how to play music, or you're traveling to someone's house to learn how to play music, to teach music, etc. Accidents happen. People slip and fall. I mean, there's all kinds of things that, or someone buys a package of coaching services from you, and one or other of the parties are not able to perform the whole contract. What happens? Is there a refund that's or a credit, or just all those things are really important to make sure you address in these type of vendor and customer agreements. And the other thing, that I want to point out, we'll talk a little bit about intellectual property later, but if you are hiring somebody to create content, to create a website, to print brochures, design logos, who owns that intellectual property? You want to make sure that you as the creator, you as the business owner, have the rights to that intellectual property, and by that I mean the copyright, the trademarks, the logos, the patents, all of those things, because those are your assets, and those are assets that you're going to monetize. And let's just say that you become your business grows and you are ready to sell your company of grandma's jellies to Smuckers or somebody else. They're going to want to buy your logo and your trademark, et cetera, et cetera. So you need to be able to tell them that you are the owner of record of those monetizable assets. Next slide, please. Okay, well, so this comes to this part of the discussion. So your brand is really important. There are so many people out there selling jelly or doing business coaching or whatever your side hustle happens to be. And if you want to differentiate yourself, you need to worry and think about your brand and how you're going to own it and how you're going to monetize it. And so intellectual property consists of three different types. And the one that I deal with the most are trademarks. And trademarks are the logo, the name, et cetera, et cetera. And that is something that you can get federal trademark protection for. And some people will ask, well, I'm only, can I just get register with my state and leave it at that, and just put a you see above the TM sign. And what that TM sign, you can put that in, and it gives you some what we call common law rights to your intellectual property. But the fact of the matter is that unless you have a federal trademark, and that's where you have the little R in the circle, through the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, you're not going to get the full protection and the full ownership to your brand. And why is that a problem? Well, a couple of years ago, I had a client who decided to form a real estate company, and they wanted to use the name of a famous, very expensive watch that begins with an R and ends with an X as the name of their company. So it was R blank Holdings. And I told him, like, I don't think that's going to work. And this was like 15 years ago. I don't think that's going to work. I know it's real estate, but this could be an issue. And about 5 years later, he and his wife did get a cease and desist letter from that company. And even though that their real estate was nothing about watches, it was nothing about luxury goods, it literally was his commercial property that he put into this limited liability company. We had to change the name, and that was inexpensive because my client had not monetized that name in any way, and it was just easy to change the name. He just liked those watches, and he thought it was kind of paying homage to it, but it's not. So but now, if you have a side hustle and you're making money and you're selling things across state lines, which we do, there are very few companies now that I feel are limited to one state. Most people who are doing side hustles, if they're selling anything, they're going to do it across state lines. Now, services are a little bit different. We talked about, for example, music lessons or something like that. If it is truly local, and you're not doing anything with any other state, you might be able to get away with just your state common law trademark rights. But I still recommend that you get an attorney to do a full, what we call a clearance search. And that is doing a search across many different platforms and databases. It's pretty complicated. A trademark opinion letter can be 50, 60 pages long. And what that does, it assesses and presents you with the risk of the name that you've chosen, whether you might be exposed to litigation, and also whether or not the trademark office is going to grant you the trademark in the first place, because the primary concern that the trademark office has is to protect the consumer. So if you call your jam making company, the best jams, they probably will say no, because that's deceptive. I mean, that's not, or if you use things that are disparaging to other companies, or if you use words that could be offensive. There's a lot of things that the trademark examiners look at before they grant you this, because again, it's the protecting the consumer. But from my perspective as an attorney, it also protects you as my client to have this trademark that will be yours to monetize and even leave as an asset to your heirs. So please do think about protecting your brand as much as you can. The other piece of intellectual property that I don't work with, but I work with attorneys who do, are patents. So patents have to do with products, with the way that they're designed, the way that they are chemically created, etc. So patent attorneys have to have a scientific background in order to be able to do patent prosecution. So that is something that you want to look at if you have an invention or a product that involves some type of a trade secret recipe like a Coca-Cola or something like that, you really want to be able to avail yourself of really just the best patent counsel to protect your invention. I mean, you may have invented a new type of, I don't know, lawnmower or whatever it is. Those mechanical things that differentiate you from other products that are out there need to be protected. So that's another part of intellectual property you want to protect. Copyright is just really what the creative things that on your website, your artwork, music, etc., things like that. And a lot of copyright protection is common law. But you can also get copyright registration, which is actually not very complicated, and it's something that a lot of people do on their own through the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. So if you want to Google that, it's not a difficult process. So you don't typically need an attorney to get copyright rights. However, if someone is stealing your ideas, and then you do want to get an attorney involved. And again, it would be something akin to a cease and desist letter that would be sent. So, next slide, please. Oh, I think we have come to the end of our slides, and so I don't know if you have any questions.
Absolutely. Okay. Really good, Anu. Couple questions have come in. Do I need insurance for my side gig?
You may. So the other thing that I would do is check with if you're working out of the home, talk to your homeowner's insurance carrier and let them know you're starting a side business and you're going to be working out of the home or creating things in the home, etc. And so you may need they'll be able to better advise you. Sometimes having an umbrella policy will be the way to go. But again, if you have any type of goods that you're making, services that you're providing, it is good to have insurance. Yes.
Somebody else asked, I am still employed or furloughed from the current job that I have. Can I have a side gig?
It depends. I know that attorneys always say it depends, but if you have an employment contract or an employment agreement, I would look at that first before doing anything. For example, most of my clients who are physicians and dentists actually have clauses in their contracts that prohibit them from entering into any type of other business entities that could be business services that could be either in competition or take them away from their primary full-time occupation. So it's really good to check. Typically though, it shouldn't be a problem, especially if you're furloughed. I mean, you're trying to get some income. It never hurts though, and it's always advisable to check with your current employer to see what their thoughts are. I think from an employer perspective, I would just be worried that you would be setting something up that's competitive with my business, etc. And if you are not furloughed, you're still working and trying to do a side gig, I'd wonder, well, is my employee now making jam while he's supposed to be on a conference call? So it's things like that come up. Also look at if you have any non-compete clauses in your employment agreement, especially if you're going to do something that's substantially similar to what your 9-to-5 job is.
I want to kind of dive in a little bit to the trademark or patent process. So what if you've got somebody that says, look, I know I've got this wonderful idea and I don't want to wait. I've been told or I read on Google or wherever that says, the trademark process takes X or the patent X takes Y, but I want to get my business going. What do they do?
Well, we can certainly, as attorneys, we can certainly do the trademark clearance search, which takes maybe a week or two, just depending on the work schedule of the attorney. And that, at the very least, will give you a sense of what risks are out there in terms of substantially similar trademarks and brands, and also the likelihood that the trademark office is going to grant you a trademark. It does take 6-8 months to get that official trademark, but that doesn't mean you can't continue. If your attorney has given you, mostly a green light in, to proceed with this brand, then there's no reason why you couldn't start your business, and you could use that TM rather than the circle with the R. The circle with the R is only for federally registered trademarks. And so the TM at least gives notice to your competitors, your customers, that a trademark application is in process.
So I want to take a step back anew. So I've got this fabulous idea for my business. Besides for starting with SBA or whatever, how early on should I be reaching out to an attorney like yourself?
Well, I'm going to be self-serving and say as soon as possible. But most people are starting side hustles with a small budget. So I would absolutely encourage you to use free resources. And the SBA is particularly good because they're a government organization. They're not trying to sell anything to you. They're agnostic about your services. They're hoping that you're going to succeed because it's good for the community. But I would really start with free resources before you hire an accountant or a consultant or an attorney. Start there first, but don't limit yourself to stopping there as well, because a lot of the information that the SBA is going to give you is going to be generic. They're not going to give you specific, okay, you should be an LLC, or you should, elect to do this with your taxes. You still are going to need, more specific, personalized advice.
So you mentioned Anu, once again, that you're not telling people what they should do, the value of an LLC. So if somebody's starting out a business, isn't deciding whether to do a partnership or a corporation or LLC, isn't that really kind of, if you do one thing right, isn't that kind of like the thing you need to do right?
Absolutely, it is. And again, a lot of people do things as a sole proprietorship and do that Schedule C election on their taxes. And again, what that doesn't do is protect you from exposure to liability and lawsuits. So I really think if you have this great idea and you have this talent that you want to put out there, protect it. Find out from your attorney what is the best business entity that you need to be in to protect your, all the things that you do and create. In addition to that, of course, is that other layer of, business umbrella policy, business interruption insurance. There's all kinds of insurance products that are out there that, you want to talk to your insurance agent about adding. And they could just add an incremental annual cost, but they can give you so much peace of mind later on down the road.
Yeah. So is it safe to say, Anu, when listening to you talk, it's almost like your attorney, as your business evolves, it should almost be like your doctor. It's an ongoing relationship. So, I imagine, once again, I can't clarify this, but I imagine that you probably have clients that you've been working with for so long because they go to you for this advice as their business is evolving. You need to have that attorney, don't you?
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. I've been in the legal profession for 25, 26 years, and I have clients that I've had for almost as long. And it is working with people in, through the life cycle of their professional lives. And some of the young physicians and dentists that I worked on their first employment contracts with, 15, 20 years ago, now are either thinking about, retirement and side hustles, or they're just going into so many different areas, such as, podcasting or coaching, or, things like that, or telehealth, and they need help. But yeah, I think that it's good to have a board of advisors.
Yeah.
Large companies have a board, right, with experts on them to help with strategy and growth. And if you can invest in a board of advisors with, a darn good accountant who's gonna keep you out of trouble, but allow you to maximize your compensation, your revenues, etc., within the regulations of the law, and a darn good attorney who is available to you to help with any other growth and protection issues, etc. I think you've got a really good start there. Another person you might want to include on your board of advisors that you don't have to pay upfront is a good banker. I have found that that small businesses, often, they may have a cash crunch, and to be able to have a line of credit that's available. And let's face it, right now, interest rates are so low. This is a really good time to get, again, not legal advice, but if you are thinking, if you need a line of credit to sustain your business, this is, it's good to have a banker within your board of advisors. Yes, I think that it's nice to have those people on your speed dial that you can reach out to as problems crop up.
Very good. Well, Anu, how can people find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn at Anu Murthy. I'm a healthcare attorney and consultant, and they can find me at my email, which is anuesq@yahoo.com. And I'm happy to chat with anybody who is looking to start a side gig, or they already have one and they need some, they have some questions about brand protection or entity formation. I'm happy to talk to them and help them in their new ventures. I'm excited. This is kind of a side gig for me as well. As I mentioned, I'm a healthcare attorney primarily, but I really am enjoying brand protection. Just working with creative people is a lot of fun.
Well, excellent, Anu. So for those that were joining us today for the live webinar, we put all of our webinars onto YouTube. Go onto YouTube, type in Knowledgeable Aging. We encourage you to subscribe. We update the YouTube page multiple times a week. This will also be converted to a podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Tunes, etc. Till next time, I'm your host, Jason Kotar, and this is Knowledgeable Aging.